So in this session, we're going to talk about myths, right? Some of the obstacles, what people think, we can't do that. It's too hard. It's too this, it's too that. And so, Jim, your first one, you said you can't stop bad invoicing. It's a myth. Explain why is that myth there, and why do you say that's really not the right way to think about it?
Okay, thanks. And I did talk about this earlier in the webinar and one of the other sections, but you and the bottom line is you really can't stop a bad invoice. You could always get one. You can never, if someone doesn't want to play in your sandbox, it's going to come across as a bad invoice. But those are going to be so few and far between if you manage the expectations of those contractors. And what will happen is if that person doesn't want to play in the sandbox, the next time you don't even invite them. And they'll get the point, unless you really, really need them, they're going to find out that, you know what, if I don't play the game, I'm not going to be able to come to the game. And so this particular slide talks about the things that you can talk with your contractor or your utility ahead of time saying, I need to have this information. Now, a lot of times you've got to get into the details and do a yearly review with your contractors. A lot of times your contract is only good for 1 year, but when you renew it, or if it's evergreen, and if you don't get a price increase, it can go for 3 or 4 years. But making sure that you have all the necessary information in the contractor or the utility's hands on what helps make that invoice fly. So Tom, I've kind of hit that on before and I've hit it now. So I think that's myth number one.
Okay.
Okay. Myth number two is, if they bring it, you must pay for it. And these all relate, or at least the first step to definitely look at making sure that you do the work ahead of time. And what it is if they bring it, you must pay for it. If you have properly contracted with the contractor or the utility and provided your expectations. Now realize when you're dealing utility, utilities can provide so much more than just line crew. They can do managing of resources, etc. So they do tend to have more pod releases, but it's still the same thing, knowing what you're going to get. So this slide in particular more looks at when you're dealing with a contractor, and the same thing goes for line tree, assessment contractors, any type of, even your debris removal or garbage pickup, making sure they understand what they need. In this example, if I say in my contract that you will have 3 to 5 qualified FTEs, 1 digger derrick, 1 bucket, and 1 pickup. Any other equipment requires prior approval. So if they bring a pole dolly, a backyard machine, you don't have to pay for it. And you've got it in the contract, you've got it written. Well, no one told us not to. Yes, we did. We put it in the contract. Just because your leadership didn't explain it to you, I'm sorry, but we're not paying for that. Or if we use it, we're only going to pay you for the hours we use it. Some people get a little more detailed than this. This is a general higher, I'll say average across the industry. But if someone says, you know what, I want a 4-man crew. I want 2 to be journeymen, 1 to be groundman, 1 to be an operator. You can get that particular in your contract. Please note that when you start getting more and more specific, what you're going to do is you're going to cause less and less availability because you're being more specific. And if a customer or a contractor doesn't have that makeup, they can end up saying, I can't meet your needs. I can only provide 3 instead of 5 or 10. Okay, Tom?
Okay. Next up.
And this last one, myth 3, is we've been doing it that way for years. This is one that you've got to realize that